meet Hercule Poirot.
My congratulations, madame.
Merci.
Well, he's only the greatest detective alive.
I suspect you invited me for reasons other than the fun.
You had something to hide.
We have the Karnak all to ourselves, a chef and enough champagne to fill the Nile.
Should have hidden it, shouldn't you?
When you have money, no one is ever really your friend.
It's too late to change events. It's time to face the consequence.
Someone is dead. The crime is murder.
Never again is what
The
you
murderer
saw. That's how
is one of you. Were you aware of any grudges?
Madame is used to getting what she wants.
never again is what you
I don't feel safe here.
the time before.
I don't feel safe with any of them.
Aloha! Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man, coming to you live once again from beautiful Hawaii here on the island of Oahu, bringing you, yes you, the best movie reviews on the entire island of Oahu. And yes, this is Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man. And last night, Sunday, opening weekend of the new movie, Death on the Niles, I went ahead and I saw it. And, well, remember our rating scale. Shaka thumbs up, it's good to see, I recommend it. Shaka thumbs down, it's junk, I don't recommend it. And for this star-studded cast of Agatha Christie's new interpretation of her classic story, Death on the Nile, it is, overall, a Shaka thumbs up. Now let me just say that I say new movie, and the fact that this movie was supposed to be out 2 to 3 years ago, honestly. This is a holdover, you know, being released by Disney, Foxlight, or Fox Studio Pictures, well, or 20th Century Studios, I guess is what it's called now. But before this was a Fox 20th Century Picture, going to be released by Fox before Disney merged with Fox, buying it up and out and all of its products. Then, you know, it probably, you know, would have been out, but then COVID happened. And then I think before or even during the COVID, there were some allegations against Armie Hammer, who is a star in this movie, who stars opposite Gal Gadot in this movie, about his sexual conduct, perhaps some allegations of sexual abuse, which has pretty much taken him out of the limelight, out of acting, so far as we know. Now he has, of course, denied all these allegations, saying that any problems of or allegations of sexual abuse, you know, they were consensual. You know, some emails or some texts were released, I guess, showing that it's like, oh, I want to drink your blood or eat your, you know, it's like, you know, on Valentine's Day, of course, you know, this, you know, could be in some strange manner thought of as, you know, just pillow talk, perhaps. But, you know, with the movement of Me Too and all that, this has, of course, gone and garnered a little bit more impact. You know, and it's, you know, basically Armie Hammer is cansata non grata in Hollywood until, you know, and probably, possibly even after this goes to court with some of, you know, his alleged victims coming forward. And we'll see what the court says. And, you know, if he can work again, if he's found innocent. If he's found guilty of these, then very much like Death on the Nile, his career may be over. You know, there's been talk that, you know, in a lot of the posters, they don't even put in Armie Hammer. He is, you know, it's like some people say, well, why didn't they just deep fake him out of the movie? Why didn't they just CGI replace him? Say like, you know, Army of the Dead, with Nataro coming in and taking over that role, or maybe the All the Money in the World kind of a movie where they took out Kevin Spacey and put in Plummer in his place. And it's like, well, you know, mainly because he's front and center in the movie. I mean, could Disney have done it? Yes. Could it have looked all right? Yeah, probably. You know, especially with what we've seen recently on Boba Fett, with Luke, you know, the CGIing of Luke, his face on a different body actor, you know, all that stuff, and looked really good. They've made leaps and bounds in the technology, but to be front and center acting against Gal Gadot and many of the other actors, Kenneth Branagh in this film, directly, could it have been made convincingly? When used sparingly, that technology can do wonders. Eventually, it probably will be able to deceive the eye. But right now, you know, just because he had so much portion of the film, additionally, it would have cost Disney so much to do the replacement all the way through the film, which he did. So that's about all I have to say about the controversy. Perhaps the controversy will make bigger box office numbers for this movie, as people want to see this as a curiosity for Kevin, you know, for Armie Hammer, opposite Gal Gadot. There is some sexual tension in this movie, kind of a romance between you know, different characters, and Armie Hammer's character, who eventually marries Gal Gadot's character. And then, you know, as some people may know the story already of Death on the Nile, it involves several people and Hercule Poirot, Agatha Christie's great detective, on a boat as they travel down the Nile. So basically an isolated venue, so that you know that somebody on the boat, somebody remaining on the boat, is still the murderer that could have done this, and continues to pick off certain passengers here and there until Hercule Poirot can discover and root out the killer. So overall, it is a shock a thumbs up. You know, Kenneth Branagh stars as Hercule Poirot and directs as very much as he did the Orient Express, previously released by Fox, which did a bigger box office number. But to be fair, this movie, Death on the Nile, did 12 million opening weekend against the Super Bowl, against, you know, great weather. So people may not have wanted to go see the movie. The tension and political, you know, negative publicity against Armie Hammer is in this film, so that may have played a part to the diminished number. Plus, COVID is still running around. That, you know, likely broke down some of those numbers. You know, it made less than the Orient Express numbers by about 10 million, I think. They did about, what, 20 some odd million for Orient Express. This only, Death on the Nile, 12 million. But again, stacked up against the Super Bowl, stacked up against COVID, stacked up against negative publicity from Armie Hammer, and honestly, a lack of superstars. There's no superstars in this movie. Kenneth Branagh is, of course, good. He's a great director. I don't always like his work in front of the camera, but he does excel as Hercule Poirot. Full confession, I did not see Orient Express because I am a fan of David Suchet, or David Sutton, on the PBS murder mystery shows that show him as Hercule Poirot, and I believed that no one could replace him as Hercule Poirot, that he was the is all end all of Hercule Poirot's, and that he should have starred in this movie or in any interpretation of film for Hercule Poirot. That being said, I must admit that Kenneth Branagh does portray a compelling performance for Agatha Christie's Belgian detective, and even go so far as to add to the character. Perhaps, I'm not sure, I hadn't read a lot of her mysteries, some of the backstory into Hercule Poirot, into what makes him, the fixated detective that he is nowadays. The loss of a great love in his life that put his focus squarely and solely on his work. The reason for his flamboyant mustache and persona is that he's hiding something dark from his past that happened to him near the end of World War I. That's all the spoilers I will say. But again, it is very compelling. And throughout this mystery, as much as solving the case, he begins to solve his own feelings, becoming attracted to one of the suspects in this movie, and perhaps finding or wishing to find or strike out again for love. Love that had previously been lost from him and forced him down the road of a solitary detective life. If this intrigues you, especially for Valentine's Day, Valentine's Week, this is a definite go-see at the theaters, especially if you've seen everything else. There's only a handful of other Oscar movies opening up in the theaters here in Hawaii. I think Licorice Pizza, I think Licorice Pizza is about, about it. There's Marry Me, I think, is the other solid Valentine's Day movie that's opening up. But still, that's Jennifer Lopez and Owen Wilson, which can't compete with a star-studded cast. Maybe not as star-studded as the Murder on the Orient Express cast, but still very, very well star-studded for Death on the Nile, especially for people familiar with British actors. You'll see very many familiar faces in this movie. And if you're a fan of Gal Gadot, I am not. And this film unfortunately solidifies that she is not leading lady material outside of Wonder Woman. And as 1984 also showed, maybe she's just not leading lady material at all. She is best in an ensemble where she can be, where better performances can be coaxed out of her by superior fellow castmates, a la Justice League, the Snyder Cut, a la the very first Wonder Woman with Chris Pine and the wonderful co-stars that surrounded her in that movie, all of which were lacking in Wonder Woman 1984. And although Death on the Nile does try to buffer her from a lot of the acting duties, she is front and center in most of the movie, which unfortunately is, as it turns out, to be a weakness for the movie, as she does not have the gravitas to, accentuate her scenes to a higher elevation. That and several other more beautiful, more buxom young actresses in this movie than Gal Gadot kind of take away what might promote her other assets, such as her pretty face. Really kind of diminish her position in this film, although she is supposed to be front and center. Look, this is Valentine's Day, thinking about love. There's a lot of love triangles, murder, murder behind the scenes of love and a marriage, and a brutal breakup, etc. in this movie, lovers' quarrels, etc. So if you're looking for something different for Valentine's Day than a love comedy like Marry Me, I would say Death on the Nile is a solid choice. And again, a shock, a thumbs up, due to all of the rest of the other fantastic cast, Armie Hammer included, Kenneth Branagh, to say the least. There's a lot of talent here, and unfortunately, the weaker of it is Gal Gadot. But, if you like her, you're curious into seeing what more she could do with her career, you're not going to get a better option than Death on the Nile. And again, it is a wonderful interpretation of Agatha Christie's novel. So if you're a fan of murder mysteries and Agatha Christie, you can't go wrong with Death on the Nile. I won't go into any spoilers because that's all the fun of these murder mystery shows. I think, I've seen the PBS versions of Death on the Nile. I think they do kind of swap it up a little bit, switch it up a little bit, to keep you guessing here and there. But ultimately, if you're overtly familiar with Agatha Christie's work, unfortunately it won't come as a major surprise, but set against a much larger budget than anything we've seen on like PBS or plays of Agatha Christie, or even previous movies back from the 70s and 80s, those interpretations, set against the backdrop of the Nile, filmed very cinematography, very cinematically. This show really shows off parts of Egypt, even though many of the parts are CG'd. They do a really good job of cross-cutting, actual film footage of the banks of the Nile, of the pyramids, and some of the CG for said sets and the set designs are rather spectacular. That kind of take you back to the golden age of cinema back in the 30s and 40s, that you could say. All of which add to the gravitas of this film, despite some actors and actresses' failings in the movie. But again, solid directing by Kenneth Branagh, along with his solid performance of David Sutton's character, of Hercule Poirot, Agatha Christie's character. All right, thank you so much. Again, shock and thumbs up for Death on the Nile. Check it out if you want. If you're looking for something new to see at the theater after seeing Spider-Man for the 100th time, go ahead and check out Death on the Nile, and you won't be disappointed. All right, thank you so much. Again, a shock, a thumbs up for Death on the Nile. Mahalo and aloha.